HBO talk show host Bill Maher was typically classy on his appearance on ABC over the weekend. Here's what he had to say about members of the Republican Party.
I would never say, and I have never said, because it's not true, that Republicans, all Republicans, are racist. That would be silly and wrong. But nowadays, if you are racist, you're probably a Republican.
And joining me now with reaction, James Peterson, assistant professor of English and Africana Studies at Bucknell University and congressional candidate from California and the 37th District. Is Star Parker is with us. What he is saying, basically trying to advance the narrative that if you're conservative, if you're a Republican, you are racist, right?
Right, to intimidate. Again, they throw out racism every opportunity they get. But it's interesting that it's the Democrat Party, the liberals, that focus on these poor communities and target them with their policies. Their policies have not only increased abortion rates, like in the black community, to where every 2 pregnancies, 1 is aborted. It's their policies that perpetuate the welfare state that keeps government dependency, and that's all we know. And wait, one more point. It's their policies that keep these people trapped in failing government schools and will not allow for school choice. So I'm not sure that they have the credibility to throw out the term racism.
Do you agree with James with that statement, Amar?
I don't agree with what Star just said. No, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why our school system
not Star, Maher.
With Bill Maher. Well, listen, Bill Maher's a comedian, right? So I don't really normally take my politics from comedians, but I think the Republican Party should take a close look at what he's saying there, which is he's not saying that all Republicans are racist. He's saying that most racists are probably Republican. And what he means by that is if you look at our political spectrum, if you look at various regions around the country, the small pockets of racism that still exist, they usually associate themselves with different conservative movements. They're not necessarily Republican movements.
We don't even know that for
sure.
sure.
They do associate themselves with conservative. Actually,
what we know is people want to protect freedom. What we know is that people rose up during the healthcare debates and say, wait a minute, you might like government intervention, but you do not want to take my freedom from me without a fight.
You can yell and talk about other issues, Star, that's fine, but I think the Republican Party should take this seriously. Listen, not all Republicans are racist, and I think that's important to state. But it is if we think about the fact that racism still exists in our society.
Is there black on white? Is there also black on white racism in America?
Well, listen, Mr. Hannity, we've had this debate before. So
let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Hang on.
Let me answer the question. Let me answer the question. You asked the question. Let me answer it.
Is Louis Farrakhan racist, for example?
Listen, the definition of American racism implies that there are systematic structures at someone's disposal that they can use to oppress someone else.
That's not what the definition of racism is.
Not only is that not the definition of racism, but then you cannot say that it's affiliated with the Republican Party, because the Republican Party is full of individuals who want to protect their freedom.
Hey, James,
why would you have me on here and not allow me to answer the questions? Can I finish the question?
You're spending half your time complaining. I'll go back to another question. Is Louis Farrakhan?
I'm not complaining.
Is Louis Farrakhan a racist in your view?
In my view, there are certain people in this world who are racist, and they have the power to enforce that racism on people that they hate.
Like
so you can take anyone. I'm not. So you can take
against their will.
You can take anyone and you put someone in power. And if they hate someone and they use the system to oppress them, that is racism.
No. You know what's troublesome to me? Because I give you an obvious example. Everybody knows Farrakhan's a racist. But here I ask you, and you don't seem to have the moral conviction or courage. You're quick with your...
You always want to attack me, Sean.
You're quick with your admonitions and warnings. The Republican Party ought to pay attention. What about Democratic politicians that hang out with Farrakhan?
Listen,
away from the personalities, and let's look at just what your definition is. Well, let's look at what your definition is. Systematic. Then why is it that systematically it's the Democrats who force abortion in poor communities? Why is it systematically that it's the Democrats who force poor children to stay in broken schools?
What are you talking about?
They set up an absolutely.
What are you talking about?
Don't you remember the health care bill? My goodness, the debate was about abortion. When you look at what's happening down in Georgia, for instance. Down in Georgia, for instance, the NAACP just said that there's something wrong with targeting this community with abortion.
Stronger.
We got to go.
You can yell as much as you want to yell. Doesn't make your point any stronger.
We got to go one at a time. Let me ask Star, as a conservative African American woman, have you experienced racism?
In which definition?
Well,
the definition that somebody may call me out of my name, or the definition that the opponent is saying that it's systematically against me? No, I do not find that the American system is against me. What I found, especially in my journey leaving welfare, was that if I would put my talent on the table, if I would control my impulses, if I would make decisions and plans for my own life, that I could be successful. I don't allow individuals to stand in my way.
Have you been attacked as an African-American woman for being conservative?
Absolutely. Death threats against my children. See, this is where they lie. They lie about who racists are, and what they do is try to paint the Republican Party as racist so that it will stop discussion. But I think that that's over. That's what happened during the health care debates, and the people still didn't stop, because American people want freedom, and they're not going to allow people to keep intimidating them.
Let me ask James this. James, I have interviewed many people in the course of this program, many African-Americans who are conservative, and they are called all sorts of names that I won't repeat on this program. All sorts of names.
Well,
and
it happens names.
And it happens with regularity. They're ostracized.
It's social suicide. You lose employment. You lose your integrity and credibility in your community. They paint a picture on black conservatives in this country as if we do not have individual minds and thoughts, and it makes others afraid to speak out. You know, when you think about black America, a third of them say that they are conservative. They're evangelical conservative, poll after poll after poll. But you don't see that in their voting patterns, and you don't see that in society because they're afraid.
What do you think when that happens to African American conservatives, when they are excoriated for being conservative?
Well, listen, I don't bash any African American conservatives. I've never disrespected Star Parker or any black conservative. I think everyone has a right to their own opinions. But let me tell you this, Sean, when I get off your show tonight, I'm going to get a series of emails, and they will be racist emails, and they will be directed at me just for appearing on your show. So I have experienced racism. I wouldn't say America's against it. Star, can I finish, please, Star?
Oh, sure,
Star, can I finish, please?
Yes, all right.
Please. Listen, I have experienced racism in this country. My children have experienced racism in this country. I wouldn't say America's against me. It's not an either-or proposition, but there are some people who hold fast to certain racist beliefs. Sometimes they're conservative. Right? No, they're not all Republicans. They are not all Republicans. Okay. But the first question was asked to respond to Mara's point, which I tried to respond to.
But I will tell you, one day we'll exchange emails. I don't think you'd be too fond of many of the ones I get as well.
You know what? I agree with you, Sean. We should do that.
James, thank you for being with us, and good luck in your